Welcome to Coal Nation, the official podcast of the American Coal Council. Join us as we dive into the critical conversations shaping the future of coal. From industry experts to policymakers, we're exploring coal's essential role in America's energy, economy, and global trade. Whether it's powering communities, driving innovation, or securing strong global economies, coal is at the heart of it all. ACC, proud to be American, proud to be coal. Coal Nation starts now.
Hello, Emily Arthun from the American Coal Council, and I'm so excited today because I am in Charleston, West Virginia with Chris Hamilton, President and CEO of the West Virginia Coal Association. And we're so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Well, I'm happy you're here, and thanks so much for inviting me on your show.
Well, I feel like from the very first time I ever met you, almost 4 years ago, you have been like this mentor to me in the coal industry on the East Coast. And I have appreciated everything you've done for the Coal Association and inviting me in like family. And for those that you don't know, Chris, he is really the patriarch of the Coal Association. So thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you. Very nice things you just said. I have enjoyed our working relationship and partnership on so many issues over the last couple of years.
I want to start with your background in coal. And I got to hear it a little bit earlier today when you were talking to Devin, but really want to kind of dive into, let's hear how you got here.
Well, that's been a long time ago. And, speaking of that, I'm not sure how I became the dean of the Coal Association executives, but I've heard that. You said patriarch. And, I don't know how all that's happened. As I told someone just the other day, I've been in this business 50 years. And it's hard to believe. It's hard to absorb that. And I remember the earlier years very vividly in the last couple years. But man, there's some really big gaps in between those two occasions.
Did you forget on purpose or?
No, they're just, I think when it just happens. A lot of time goes by and you're just so caught up in everything you're doing, life, work, raising kids. And now I'm raising grandchildren today. It's been it's been a great journey. It's been a extraordinary journey that's been fulfilling all the way around. I'm not sure I would change much of it at all.
Well, in your background, you didn't start out in the association. You started out as a miner. I
did. And very, very proud of that. And I still wear that honor with honor today because it I think it gives some additional definition to those of us in working around associations, around state and federal government, and all the policy and legislative issues we deal with. It's like any other apprenticeship or experience you have when you learn it from the ground up, so to speak. I think it just means a little bit more. And in my case, I went to work as an underground miner right out of high school at 18 years old. And I worked there almost 5 years and, progressed through, run the equipment, doing the labor type work that you do when you first start. And became a mine foreman, fire boss, section foreman, got into the production side of the business, was fortunate to get involved with training and human resource development and had a great mentor back then in my life and was just able to work in mining, but around mining, headed up a mine training academy when I was 24, 25. Years old, where we were training every new apprentice going underground in a simulated mine facility and in conjunction with the area coal companies and using their underground mining facilities to conduct some of the hands-on and machine operation. From there, I went to a very short period of time actually I started my own company, consulting company, which I operated for about 4 or 5 years, took a job with the state of West Virginia's deputy director of mines, overseeing enforcement and regulatory matters for about a year, maybe a little longer. Then I was hired at the West Virginia Coal Association about 35 years ago.
What a story to be part of the industry and now be representing the industry. My first question is, what has been the biggest change from the time you started to today's mining? What would you say is your proudest moment in mining?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a proudest moment. The biggest changes have come with the with the expansion of our mining operations and all the new advanced mining technologies that has enabled this industry today to be a world leading industry where people truly come from all over the world to see how we do it here, to see how our mines are designed, how they are engineered, how they are operated, the kind of equipment we use, our extractive methods. It's truly a state of the art, best of the class, right here. I'll say right here in West Virginia, but right here in America, of course. When you think about where we were 50 years ago and where we are today, the level of, and I think we take a lot of the mechanization and technologies that we utilize today. I think we take a lot of that for granted because, this industry has just been under constant change. And the variety and myriad of challenges that we are just constantly confronted with, I think causes us to, again, just sort of take for granted some of the changes that have taken place. 50 years ago when I started, we were still shooting coal underground with conventional mining methods. And I had the opportunity to work on a conventional section for a little over a year, as continuous miners were being introduced, and as longwall mining was first introduced here in West Virginia as well.
I was in DC last week and I was talking to a group of people learning about coal. One of the things I just threw out the question, what is the image of coal mining that you have in your minds? And I'm sure it comes as no surprise that the image is that old picture of the coal miner with the light on his hard hat and that dirty black face. And that's what people still think about coal mining. And I'm sure you do the best, and that's the thing that we try to do every day, is change that image of what coal mining is. And if you could speak to one thing that people should know about coal mining today, what is it?
If I were to make that claim today, I would just say, hey, it's just you could pick a person out of any aspect of our society, and maybe surprised to learn that he or she is involved with the mining industry. I mean, when you think about it today, and for whatever reason, we do tend to drag a lot of our past with us. Even as it relates to mining accidents or what I would characterize as undesirable events that have helped define this industry and, to some extent still occur from time to time, not disasters so much, but just undesirable events. And it's what the news media captures and focuses on. And, mining's been around a long time. Here in West Virginia, it was here before West Virginia became a state. And that's been 165 years ago now. We were mining in the state of Virginia for 100 years before then. So, I guess it stands to reason that some of that past would be carried forward. And the image you speak of, we're so far from that today. I mean, our average miner today, or our miner's average age is 5 years old, and he has two or three children. One may go to West Virginia University, and the other at Marshall University. And his wife is a school teacher, or a nurse, or involved in local charity. And they're just everyday people, and they just make up such a large portion, of our citizenry around the state, around the country.
Absolutely.
I mean, they really are, and they drive nice vehicles and live in nice homes and make a great living, and so it's the image today, I think, is a far cry from that one that we try to get beyond. But it defines us, health is part of our culture, our heritage.
We have to remember it.
And we have to remember it, no question about it.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit about at the very beginning West Virginia coal, and you gave me that smile that you give me. But I want to talk a little bit about how you and Travis Detai, who's been on the Coal Nation podcast before, really came together probably 4 or 5 years ago and said, look, it's not East Coast, it's not West coal, it is, we are one country and we're coal. Can you talk a little bit about bringing everybody together to have these conversations that we stand unified as a coal industry?
Yeah, and I think it was a long time coming. Again, you think today it's just a very natural thing to try to pull everybody together to work a little closer together and share the same priorities. Coal in Kentucky is very similar to, we do it a little better over here, but it's a little very similar to West Virginia or Pennsylvania, and the same with our western states. One of the things that we noted early on was, our industry was virtually cut in half during the Obama years. Everybody's production was ratcheted down about 50%. The number of active workers were likewise or commensurately reduced. And, all of a sudden we have, instead of 160 million tons of coal, we're only mining 75. And instead of 40,000 working miners, we only have 12, 15,000
Right.
working miners. And 20 years ago, when our nation was producing over 1 billion tons of coal and consuming 1 billion tons of coal, Kentucky was competing with West Virginia and Pennsylvania for certain markets. Virginia was competing with West Virginia. Eastern states were competing with West, or Western was trying to encroach into Eastern markets.
Yeah.
And we were very parochial, rather. And had some issues with some of those challenges over markets. Well, when you reduce everything in half, you realize that the threat of Kentucky or Wyoming coal moving into West Virginia has been eliminated by other forces. We better doggone work together, hang together or hang separately,
Right.
as they say. And a lot of our member companies that operate in different states wanted the different state associations to work a little closer together, want us to share the same priorities, be pulling on the rope together at the same
Yeah.
pace. So it had a lot to do with the workforce being reduced, and the challenges that we were being confronted with seemed to be unprecedented. It just required everybody to kind of work a little closer together, parlay resources, utilize everyone's strength and expertise. So it's been a good process, and I think it's been very productive.
Well, and truly, West Virginia has led the charge. The Attorney General's office has led the charge on several cases and brought along the other coal states with them. But I'm going to assume that you kind of had some help in that.
Well, we did, no question. I think West Virginia's played a pretty significant role in national coal policy issues as well. Our current governor, former Attorney General Patrick Morrissey, he was just a real pit bull as Attorney General, and he was challenging EPA. Even as far as before the U.S. Supreme Court, there was a landmark decision where he overturned EPA's one of their rules. I think it was the Clean Power Rule initially, and we were all involved in that. All the states
Yeah.
were part of, and national coal groups were intervenors in that case, and there was multiple cases there, and of course. Former governor and U.S. Senator Joe Manchin was on the point of most of the coal issues. He was chairman of the National or Senate Energy Committee.
Works pretty closely with Wyoming's
Yeah.
State
Yes.
Senator John
Yes.
Barrasso. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, our you don't want to leave Shelley Moore
No.
Capito out. She's always been a real staunch, you know, and a big supporter of the business. So we had a lot of political clout for as little of a state we are. And of course, we're one of the nation's largest coal producing states, leading coal export state.
Absolutely.
Have a lot of things going here, and a lot of things for politicians to protect when you have someone sitting in the White House wanting to transition away from what you do best as a state.
You talked a little bit about what coal looked like prior to, let's see, we'll go to 2008. It was twice the size that it is today. Coal producing companies and businesses and everything. I was just, Wyoming hosted a roundtable, and there's a lot of discussion of exporting coal out of the West Coast. But at the end of the day, that still doesn't get us back to production that was pre-Obama, pre-Biden administrations. To me, the one way that takes us back is we have to build power plants. If we're going to go back to those levels that we experienced before, it has to be increased usage for power. And not only power, but increased use. We need to bring our steel back to the United States too. Thoughts about that?
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you have to have a market, and that market, yeah, I mean, it is coal-fired generation. That's the biggest market to bring back our thermal reserves to the extent they were operating 15, 20 years ago. I think it's very healthy that we're exploring and developing coal to liquids and coal-based advanced carbon products. And I'm real pleased to see that taking hold in some areas. And there's estimates that can result in large productivity gains. But that's not our current business model, and that's not going to replace the losses we've experienced on the generation side. In fact, a lot of that's just startup companies, and they're consuming very, very small quantities of coal, but it's very promising because it is another potential market for our coals. We export about half of the coal we mine here in West Virginia today. And that has increased from probably 20-25% over the past 20 years. It's good that we have these foreign markets, but it's also a little risky. When you got to rely on Japan, China, and other places around the world, Italy, Brazil, to continue to consume your product. Just this policy, mere policy, public policy and legislation basically caused the decline here in this country. That could easily happen elsewhere. But the power needs just seem to be so large in these foreign destinations that perhaps is unlikely, but you never know. It just makes you a little nervous when 50% of your product is consumed out of the country's borders.
Well, and we certainly, over the last several years, have seen where political activity changes the markets. When we saw Russia invade Ukraine, what happened in Germany, and now we're seeing what's going on with Iran. It bodes well for coal because we are secure, stable, and affordable. But at the same time, once you get out of these political activities, then what happens? All of a sudden we switch back, and so we need to add stability into the markets for sure.
No question about it. The other thing I would mention or add to creating or building back the thermal coal market here domestically, I really compliment President Trump and his energy team through the National Energy Dominance Group with Doug Burgum and Chris Wright and Blake, who's backing that, and Lee Zeldin. I mean, they're just moving at record pace and leaving no stone unturned. I can't compliment them enough. I mean, I think their biggest cheerleader. A lot of us have been, but I'll take credit for being the biggest cheerleader over the past 16 months or so. I mean, they've just been going at a fast and furious pace, such a fast and furious pace that we've never seen before. I've never seen in my career. And as I'm talking to, I speak to a local college science group every now and then, and I was asked about that 3 or 4 months ago, and I said, because the question was, is this regularly or been routinely experienced every time there's a Republican president? Absolutely not.
No.
This is once in a lifetime stuff that you're experiencing here today. Don't expect it to see it again. Boy, we've never experienced anything like this in the past. But the one thing that President Trump and DOE Secretary Wright are insisting is that these current coal plants stay open. In fact, there's 40 some that was scheduled to be closed or shuttered this year that they have kept open or almost insisted that they remain open and retool. And that's what we're doing here in West Virginia. We're actually upgrading our coal plants, and we're taking really advantage of all the funding that's out there being made available for that was previously earmarked for renewable energy and non-coal related energy initiatives. We have to do that. I mean, we have to take full advantage, and we have to make sure there's still power plants that are scheduled for closure. And there's utilities operating these plants that are still not fully convinced they want to run the plants, or doing so because of what's perceived to be popular, what the big guy wants us to do, and he does. But we're still, lacking having a 100% commitment to retool, rebuild these plants. Because when you do, they can run for a long time. I mean, I hear 2040, run to 2050. Some of these will run forever if you take care of them, make the upgrades, do all the routine maintenance. And that's the single biggest thing I think we can do to sustain and maybe even grow thermal markets today.
So fast and furious down a path of renewables and net zero by 2050. And we had to have these timelines and everything. And we in the industry recognized that a lot of that wasn't achievable for the safety of our grid. Like, we just knew that you couldn't, 1 megawatt of coal energy is not 1 megawatt of renewables. And we knew that. We have an administration that understood that, which is why it's become such a critical conversation, is they're really protecting America from a failing grid and timelines that were not achievable. And you needed that baseload power. And so I think it's really important for you to talk to our audience about how we're seeing these reverses happen. And even now we're walking back the climate change policies, and people are like, oh, wait, maybe we weren't right. And we're seeing that in the news, that maybe we got it wrong a little bit. And the scientists are starting to say, oh, let's pump the brakes a little bit. But talk about how important this industry is to the baseload power of the United States.
It's critical. You could not do without this industry's contribution to baseload power today. Save nuclear, perhaps. I think, frankly, West Virginia coal is the absolute true form of baseload power. It is what enables, I think, the utilities and the grid to toy with the percentage of renewable and some of these alternative fuels, because you're comforted by knowing that you have this baseload fuel that's going to provide the power on a 24/7 basis. And fortunately, I think they were a little late weighing in. It's not typically what NERC or FERC rather, or PJM typically do. But, towards the last year of the former federal administration, the Biden years, they were weighing in. They were voicing their concern over the fragility of the grid, just how close this country was truly running low on fuel routinely. They were scheduling brownouts. They were predicting blackouts. They were predicting, the dangerous close levels of baseload fuel as we're pumping more and more renewable power and alternative power. Even gas lines aren't true baseload. They provide a variation of baseload power, but they still have a lot of componentry that's subject to weather and freezing and valves, compressors, and their power lines. And that's real-time power. They have nothing in reserve like we have at a power plant, where you have 100, 150 days of coal on the ground for the real inclement weather events. So I think that's really critical. And I have to say also, on the whole climate issue, that most of your utilities also have climate goals, and some of those goals are in place today, despite what we hear out of the White House and what you and I are saying. There's still a lot of public utilities that have very similar goals that remain in place because of their shareholders, very similar goals to what President Biden held. And there's also a lot of states, frankly, there's some that we ship coal to, that have renewable standards of some semblance. So still a lot of work to be done. And I hear routinely that, we don't know what's going to happen after President Trump. We could have There could be president with a different philosophy
Hmm.
and policy on climate and the contribution of the fossil energy. So I'm not sure that's the case, but I understand how some would view that. That's the other thing. I mean, it's worth addressing here. Not only has President worked so feverishly to do everything he can to help coal and coal-fired generation, but how about how quick and dramatic the narrative has changed
Hmm.
under President Trump with respect to climate policy and renewables. And I mean, the narrative all of a sudden is very favorable to our business, and rightfully so. I wasn't sure the narrative was going to change as quickly or as dramatically as what it has, but it really has.
It
I mean, that,
absolutely
that
has.
bully pulpit of the
Yeah.
president, the office of president, is very strong.
Well, and just understanding because it's became a talking point and a positive talking point. We're also seeing people understanding energy a little bit better, I believe.
Mm,
I mean, we truly love our devices and we love our AI, and you can't go on to a social media platform without seeing some form of AI generation that somebody used. And, that all comes with energy. And that's
yes.
good to see that coal hopefully helps people understand that's why you have that ability to do that is because we're the backbone to the industry. I want to switch gears a little bit because I mean, I can talk thermal coal out of Wyoming quite a bit, but to understand metallurgical coal in West Virginia and on the East Coast, talk to me about metallurgical coal and how important that is to our country.
Well, thank you for that question. That was on my mind to revisit that because I was just sitting here thinking, my goodness, I have members who are sitting here thinking that I believe we only mine thermal
Coal.
coal. Uh,
Not true. Not
not true,
true.
not true. It's kind of interesting. We do about half our members provide or mine
Mhm.
metallurgical coal. We pride ourselves here on being the largest underground coal producing state and the leading export state where we account for, it used to be 50%. Pennsylvania's come on really strong and some other states, and we're about 40% of the U.S. Export product right now. But we also mine in our leading metallurgical coal producing state. And that accounts for almost, right at 45% of our state's output. And, that comprises the majority of our export product. We're building towers and
Mhm.
steel and infrastructure all over the world with West Virginia metallurgical coal. It is shipped to some 42, 43 foreign destinations around the world. And that's remarkable when you think about it, coming out of
Mhm.
our little state here of West Virginia. And domestically, I believe I'm right in saying over 70% of all domestic steel relies on West Virginia metallurgical coking steel to help uh, manufacture the steel. So we're real proud of that, and so there's a big contribution economically and manpower wise to the steel industry that comes out of our metallurgical coal product, and it's primarily used to manufacture steel and help build out infrastructure. It's just an amazing base fuel used for steel making.
Mhm. You talked a little bit. We've touched on it. Coal products. Recently, there was a groundbreaking in West Virginia around a coal products, coal gasification. But in addition to that, there's some really neat things going on as far as coal products, whether it's core resources, innovations, or what's being done at the university level. I just had a
Hmm.
email about graphene
Yes.
and coal. How exciting is this new technology for coal too? Talk about that a little
Oh,
bit.
I think it's really exciting. I mean, I'm personally, I appreciate and just see a lot of benefit, especially as you're experiencing all this downward pressure on the thermal side of the business and consuming coal and that'll rear its head again. We will see that. So it'd be nice to have another use, especially for your thermal coals. Touchtone Industries, which is headed up by Brian Joseph, now under Core Energy. Boy, it's just an amazing walk through their laboratory and see everything they're doing. I mean, they have defense contracts. They're building pieces, for the aerodynamics
Truly.
and the spaceships, actually.
I'm still amazed at just the deck planking.
Yes, the deck planking that you see at a couple locations. Rogeby Park up north has some of that on display at their, I think it's the Good Zoo up there.
Okay.
And there's just a lot of different projects. There was a company south of here in Bluefield, West Virginia, that broke ground on a facility, and we're actually making products for future housing materials from coal. And all that was based on an MIT study that revealed, don't hold me to the time, but I think it's like 70, 80 years out where there's going to be a real predict there might very well be a real shortage of building materials,
Sure.
wood, basically from trees. And so carbon products from coal provide an alternative to that. And then there's the graphite graphene, which is desired worldwide for various manufacturing.
For those golfers.
Yeah, golfers. There's a much more than a golf club, I think, that's currently manufacturing from graphite, but you have that. Then the traditional coal to liquids, everything from kerosene to jet fuel to diesel fuel. In fact, that's the company we were talking about earlier that broke ground here in Mason County, where there's a lot of other developments. And their presentation basically follows what we've heard with respect to the heating and breaking down the coal that they have into just a series of tanks and processes is very similar to a gas cracker plant that we've heard so much about.
Okay.
Where you take that basic, coal sample, then just begin breaking it and transforming it into a variety of products. So that's all brand new. It's all, it's a little beyond, incubator, but yet it's still in its infancy. So I just think that deserves a lot of attention, a lot of federal research dollars, and hopefully, that'll provide a whole universe of advanced coal and advanced carbon products in the future.
I want to shift gears as we kind of start to wrap things up. I want to talk about Friends of Coal for a time, because Friends of Coal was developed right out of this office.
Yes.
For everybody, we're going to give a shout out to Friends of Coal because it is a small but mighty group of people. But I want to talk about the vision that you guys had for Friends of Coal, why it was started, and why it is so important to the industry.
Well, Friends of Coal was born out of this office. And at the time when it was developed, we were going through the Mountaintop Mining Challenge, which was basically an assault on surface mining, large scale open pit mining here in West Virginia. And there was also growth at that time in what I would characterize as the environmental movement. And there was a lot of more liberal media outlets that were helping their cause by showing all these signs of, the countryside being impacted with surface mining. And, we thought that Friends of Coal, which is just a grassroots organization, would provide a means to develop a pro-coal sentiment and group within these various mining communities. And it started out by identifying, key people within the mining community. Might be a mine manager, might be an equipment operator, might be a general laborer. It was a program that was devised from the outset to provide a means for miners' wives and children to become a little more involved and to be able to speak out on behalf of the industry and the job that, whether it's uncle, father, or brother are doing. And it also provided a means to, educate the general public There was a lot of work that went into, even ran some television commercials and radio ads, and it was all, featuring friends of coal. And it may be an educator, a, a physician, someone, just somebody in business or a banker, speaking out
Mhm.
on behalf of the industry, the importance of the industry, how it's been one of our state's foundational industries, and all the overall health it provides for the state of West Virginia. And it just morphed into being a program where most miners and their families just had provided a sense of belonging, and, just wanted to be part of. And with that came a lot of yard signs, a lot of stickers, a lot of car license plates. And, we sponsored, various, local events or charity events,
Mhm.
even back 15 years ago, we had was much more than just a coal rush football game. It was a marquee uh, game between our state's universities, and it was called the Coal Bowl, which we featured between West Virginia University and Marshall University. Back when Randy Moss and Chad Pennington were playing for Marshall University, and provided us to be major part of that
Mhm.
game, and all the hoopla that led up to it, and with banquets and luncheons. And we let that one get away, but there was the governor at that time basically forced the two schools to play each other. A lot of animosity there, and it was, we had to thread a real tight needle on who we were for during that
Absolutely.
game.
2
So
West Virginia
yeah,
teams? Yeah, you didn't wanna take that bet, did
but
you?
we had to sponsor major basketball games here
Mhm.
and programs, and uh, it was very well done. Had an ongoing budget allotment, and it's pretty much, run on very little input
Mhm.
today. I mean, it's strongly rooted and part of our culture here in West Virginia.
Oh, and I don't just say West Virginia, it's all over. There's Friends of Coal in the West and Ohio
Yes.
and Kentucky. I mean, it has a long reach, which is good for the industry.
Yeah, and then we started the Facebook and social
Mhm.
media platform for it, and kind of is what really is sustaining most of it today,
Well,
self-perpetuating.
yes. Well, you led into it, and I have to ask the question, are we ever gonna see a Wyoming, West Virginia coal football game?
Well, I don't know if we do belong to the Big 12, which is south of Wyoming,
Mhm.
I know, but we should work towards that.
I think you and Travis would be right there in the front.
I think that would be a good endeavor. We ought to take that on.
Well, I mean, Wyoming certainly stole the idea from West Virginia to have the Cowboys and coal game.
I'm glad you said that.
I mean, you guys did it first, so I guess maybe stole's not the right word, but definitely copied a great idea.
Duplicate.
Duplicated,
Yeah.
copied a great idea. Talk about how proud events. I mean, two great events supporting coal in two great states.
Really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable, and give Travis a lot of credit. I mean, they really put a lot of effort in theirs and
Hmm.
did it right, and I'd like to think that we are as well. And I mean, it's just uh, it's garnered great attention
Hmm.
and great pro coal stories all through the state the week of the game.
Yeah.
Of course, at our Mountaineer Field, our players actually touch a piece of coal
I
as
saw that.
they
Yeah.
enter the stadium. We have a large block of coal that was donated up there. Charlie Bierce and Blackhawk Mining
Hmm.
had a little bit to do with that, and so they honor various aspects of our industry. At West Virginia University, they have a mining engineering program, and within the mine safety outreach, which is the extension service, they have a mine rescue team that's won some national championships, and
Hmm.
they just do great work at the mine extension service up there. And I mention all that because there's a lot of research projects, just a lot of coal related initiatives that are undergoing at West Virginia University. And during the course of the game, they'll recognize these different divisions and departments, and on several occasions they will bring the student mine rescue team. They'll bring them down on the field for special recognition and recognize other alumni. But then on occasion they'll ask for everybody in the stadium, to stand if they're involved in the coal industry in some form or fashion.
Is it the whole stadium?
It's 60,000 people that stand and clap. So,
right.
I mean, it's just really, it's just really good to see all that. And just leaves a real positive mark on the business and industry.
It truly does. Well, I think we could talk all afternoon if we had the opportunity. I hope you have me back.
I have nothing to do.
You have nothing to do. We could talk all afternoon. Well, I want to come back. We'll save some stories for another time, but this is 250 years we're celebrating this year in the United States. Coal has certainly been a part of it from the very beginning. What is one thing that you want our listeners to take away from today? That's
a great question. And it's a very fair question. And my initial response is, I'd hope we'd be around another 250 years. We're going to be around a while.
Yes.
I mean, this is a great, great business that contributes so much to this state and to this country. There is a future in coal, and it's. I think it's the most honorable profession that someone could become involved with.
Nothing more American.
And the career path, nothing more American. And the career path goes in so many directions, not just for workers and engineers, but even your everyday business executives, whether it's data processing or clerical or accounting. There are a lot of really secure jobs in coal. It's going to be around for a long time. And I would encourage people to influence their dependents and children to look at coal for a career.
Well, thanks, Chris. I don't think you could have summed it up any better. I do believe next time it might have to be the three of us, you, Travis, and I, because when I get the two of you together, boy, that'll be a fun podcast.
Well, I like Travis, appreciate all he does. And, it's really good to get to work with him and his colleagues as well.
You two just make me laugh when you're together. So we'll make that happen. I want to thank everybody for listening to Coal Nation today and having Mr. Chris Hamilton from West Virginia with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Coal Nation, the official podcast of the American Coal Council. Our mission is to share coal's story and showcase its critical role in powering our economy and supporting our way of life. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe. The American Coal Council represents members across the entire coal supply chain and advocates tirelessly for our vital industry. There is strength in numbers, and we'd love for you to be part of the conversation. By joining ACC, you gain exclusive access to the latest industry developments, a voice in our work that can benefit your business, and incredible networking opportunities. To learn more, visit www.americancoalcouncil.org. Together, we are shaping the future of coal, and it's exciting. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.